Well, hello, welcome to episode 123 of the Confident Live Marketing Podcast. Today, I'm going to be sharing my new live video studio. I'm very excited about this. But just to let you know, this show goes live every Tuesday and Thursday, and it is also a podcast. So if you haven't checked out the podcast, go to iag.me/podcast. But of course, if you're listening to the podcast, it's great to have you here. I really appreciate you plugging me into your ears. Well, a little bit more about my live video studio in a bit, but I just want to introduce my first sponsor. Actually, it's my only sponsor for today, and that is... Let's have a look. It is Restream. So Restream is the complete multi-streaming suite for entrepreneurs and businesses who want to expand their audience and reach more people, because it allows you to multi-stream to lots of different destinations. In fact, today, if I can get my iPad working, there we go. I'm going live to Amazon Live. In fact, I can see we have Gabriel watching on Amazon. I think a lot of people watching on Amazon at the moment are probably in the US, so it's very, very early in the morning. I think it's like 6 a.m. East Coast, or maybe even earlier. So, Gabriel, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. So, I'll be broadcasting to Amazon through Restream, but also LinkedIn Live, Facebook, and YouTube, and all the other places that I'm going live to. So, it is cool. And here is a little bit more about Restream.
The Confident Live Marketing Podcast is proudly sponsored by Restream. Restream is the complete multi-streaming suite for entrepreneurs. It's the easiest way to broadcast live to over 30 destinations at the same time, including Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, and so much more. Restream Studio makes it so simple to stream directly from your browser, bring in guests and add your branding, videos, and graphics, and view and highlight comments from your destinations, all at the click of a button. Take Restream for a test drive and get your first month completely free at iag.me/Restream.
Well, definitely check out Restream. They are awesome. Well, welcome to the show. We are talking about building a live video studio, also a podcasting studio. I'm going to go through all the stuff that I've got, all the gear that I've been building over the years. And one of the things I'm going to talk about really is that you don't have to have everything right from the start. Keep things a little bit simpler right at the start. And that is one of the things I'm going to be talking about next episode. So next episode, which is on Thursday, or if you're listening to the podcast, it's next Friday. It's all about bootstrapping your live video studio, or it's really about making the tech easy. Because one of the things that I get asked a lot about, or one of the concerns I get asked or mentioned from my clients and from my audience is like, Ian, help me, I'm like overwhelmed with the tech, and it doesn't need to be that difficult. So start simple. That's what we're going to be talking about on Thursday. So by the way, if you just joined us, let me know where in the world you are watching from. It is Melissa's birthday. Great to see you, Melissa. And Katie is saying happy birthday, Melissa. Okay, so I didn't realize this. Tara is saying left coast, I need to go into Wikipedia, is a political expression that implies that the west coast of the United States leans politically to the left. The expression can refer to states that lean left. I didn't know that. That kind of makes sense. You learn something every single day. Well, let's get on with this now. So I'm going to, now if you're listening to the podcast, you won't be able to see this, but I'm just going to go to my different camera here. This is a camera I'm using here is actually my phone. I'm using Epoch Cam, and I've got it on a, what do you call it? A tripod. That's the word. Behind me. So hello over there. And so you can see my setup here. I've got a nice little standing desk here, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But basically what this allows me to do is move down. So let's do that. Ooh. And I can also move it up. So this has been great because let's go back to my other camera. I've got the right, maybe let's go down a little bit. There we go. So the great thing about this is it allows me to stand for my live videos, which I think is important because that gives you a little bit more energy, I think. The camera is this energy sucking device. So finding a sit-stand desk, I think, is really important. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this desk in a minute. But there's lots of other things going on. So anyway, I've lost Amazon on my thing. There we go. So what I want to do now is I want to show you me making my studio. I've got a quick little video. I enjoy putting that together. So let's talk about what is really important. What do you absolutely need for your live video studio? And the first thing that you need, obviously, is a decent computer. Now, I've currently got a MacBook Pro. Let's find my camera there. So it's a laptop. I wouldn't always recommend a laptop. I mean, the great thing about a laptop is obviously it's portable. And that is great because I want to work downstairs. I don't want to work in my office. I just want to be able to, and also I want to take it if I'm traveling, which I've not been doing an awful lot of for some bizarre reason. But anyway, but in a studio, ideally go for a desktop because a desktop computer, they are cheaper in terms of like getting the kind of the specs that you want. And you've got less of an issue with cooling. So on this laptop, you might not be able to see this, but down here I've got a cooler. I've got a laptop cooler here. So that's because this is an Intel processor in here, and it's like really overheating. So what I recommend now we can talk about the Mac versus PC kind of thing. I've talked about that a lot on the show. PCs are great for live streaming. They tend to be a lot more powerful. But in terms of the software at the moment, the software combination that I really recommend is Ecamm Live with Restream. And so that is Mac-only software. And it runs amazingly on the new M1 chip. And so if you want to get started with live streaming, I highly recommend getting a Mac Mini, the M1 Mac Mini, because it is perfect for live streaming. It works so well. I really, really love it. In fact, that is what I'm going to be getting next. I've actually tested this with my kids' Mac Mini. They've got an M1 Mac Mini downstairs, and it just works beautifully. I'm actually having some issues with my MacBook Pro. So yeah, just something to think about. I can see Gabriel saying, yeah, it's 6 a.m. I can't sleep because I played on my Xbox between 2 p.m. and 9 a.m. Then I went to sleep. Oh my goodness. Do you know what? I think I have to admit this. I've got a bit of an addictive personality. And so I don't play games for that very reason, because this is years ago, about over a decade. No, actually longer than that, 15, 20 years ago. I was playing this game called, what's it called again? Age of Empires. I started playing about 7 p.m. at night. And the next thing I knew, it was 4 a.m. And I didn't know how that happened. So I thought, no, it's not going to happen. But anyway, I hope you're going to get some sleep, Gabriel. So that's the first thing is really important is your computer. And I highly recommend the M1 Mac Mini if you wanted to get started because it's very reasonably inexpensive. And then the next thing that I recommend that you look at, that's absolutely vital, is decent internet speeds. So internet speeds are vary throughout the world. We're very blessed where we are in that we have fiber internet. So if I go over here and I do a speed test now at the old house, let's see if I can do this. Is this going to work? Right, so I've got a speed test here. That's no good. That's okay. That shouldn't be happening. It should be about 700 or 800, but for some reason it's gone down. So we're on a gigabit connection, but it says 138. But the important thing here is that my upload speed is good. It's about 44 megabits per second upload speed. So that's really good. I have a feeling actually that my computer, because my computer is running reasonably slow, I'm having some speed issues there. I think it's slowing things down. So that's the second thing. Computer, ideally an M1 Mac Mini, and then decent internet speeds as well. And I can talk to you a little bit more about that in a bit. Let's have a look. So Katie is saying very funny. Luke is watching from Adelaide, down under in Australia. Hope you're doing well, Luke. One day I will get back to Australia. Challenge ITV is here. Great to see you. Hope you're doing well. Are you using Camlink with Ecamm? Are you seeing any latency between the microphone and video? No, I'm currently not using the Camlink, but I will be in the future. So I've got a Canon M50 camera. And one of the advantages with that camera and the Mac and Ecamm Live is that I can plug it directly in via USB and it just works perfectly. But there is some latency, and there may be a little bit more latency if you use something like the Camlink. Now, the Camlink, by the way, just in case you don't know what that is, it's a device, you plug it into your computer, so it's got USB on one end and it's got HDMI on the other. And the idea of that is you basically output your camera into the HDMI and then into your computer. The important thing here is that the camera that you use has what's called clean HDMI out. Now, the Canon M50 Mark I, which is what I've got, doesn't really have that, but it works perfectly with the with just plugging it in via USB. But latency, yes, there will be some latency. That means there's going to be a slight delay in the image from your camera getting into your computer and displaying on the screen, whereas your microphone is going to come in really quickly, not instantaneously, but almost. And so there's going to be a slight delay between your video and your audio. Now, the way you fix that is in the software that you use. Not all software does this, but tools like Ecamm Live or OBS Studio, they will have a system where you can what's it called again? Let's have a quick look where it is. It is under audio, and yes, it's called mic delay. So let me just, I'll output this on the screen so you can see this. So in the preferences, if you go to audio, there is this option to not automatically mute. It's the mic delay, and I have delayed it by 3 frames, and that seems to be about right for me. So that's what I would recommend that you do, the mic delay option. So yes, and I think probably if I have the Camlink, there'll be more of a delay there. So okay, so that is so what we talked about there. We talked about the computer, we talked about the Mac Mini. And we've talked about internet and networking. Okay, the next most important thing, in my opinion, is, and I'd love to know whether you agree with me on this, is audio, and it's the microphone. Because first thing is important is your computer. That's important because if you don't have a powerful enough computer, you can have loads of problems. Internet, if your internet isn't too slow, again, you're going to have loads of problems. Microphone, audio, if people can't hear you well, or if there's loads of echo and background noise, they're going to switch off. Audio is absolutely vital, particularly for podcasting, but also for live streaming as well. Now, if you have watched or listened to the show in the past, you'll no doubt know that I'm a big fan of the Heil PR-40 microphone. This is a dynamic microphone. It's on shot. I'm not going to go into lots of different things here, but except for, I'm just wondering whether I added this to Amazon. I didn't actually, so unfortunately I've not got that on if you're watching on Amazon Live, it's the Heil PR-40 microphone. I really recommend it. But this is very much in shot. If you're looking for something that's out of shot, then I recommend a lapel mic, a lavalier mic, or you can get shotgun mics as well. But I also recommend getting a shotgun microphone. Sorry, not a shotgun microphone. I get a shock mount and a boom arm as well. It just means that it's you're not going to get any of that thumping or if you're kind of typing or whatever, it's not going to come through all those knocking sounds into your microphone, which would be really, really bad. Challenge ITV is talking about the mic delay option and saying I am setting it between 6 and 8. So obviously you're getting a little bit more latency on that. And you're using the Rode NT Mini USB with Rode Connect software working great. Awesome. So that's a USB microphone. And that actually reminds me, this microphone here is not USB. You have to plug it into an audio interface. So it requires more gear, whereas if you have a USB microphone, it's just really simple. I'd love to know a bit more about the Rode Connect software. That would be great. Awesome. So that's the next thing. Mike Boyd is here from Friska Desk. I'm going to be talking about Friska Desk very shortly. It's great to see you, Mike. Hope you're doing really well. You have been absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for your support. So the next most important thing, I think, is the camera. Now, you can go for different types of cameras here. As I said, we've got the Epoch Cam. That's basically my iPhone camera over there. The other camera I recommend is the C920. Now, this is my C920 webcam up here. It's a Logitech. It's relatively inexpensive. I've actually got this pointing downwards. So this is like a downwards camera. So I can show you, I've got my Rodecaster there, and I've got my teleprompter remote control thing over there as well. They are really great. Now, the camera that I've got, if I go back to my Epoch Cam, is behind the teleprompter. So it's a Canon M50 camera. I wouldn't recommend the Mark 1 anymore. I'd recommend either the Mark 2 or the Sony A6400 plus the Cam Link is what I'd go for. But just start off with something simple, and over time you can always upgrade as well. And that brings me on to the next most important thing, which is your desk. And I didn't realize how important my desk was until I got this desk. It is amazing. If you've watched my show before, you may have realized that my desk before was just it was a standard desk. And then on top of that, I had an IKEA desktop propped up by 4 paint pots. That was my standing desk. Now, the problem with that was that it was fixed. It was fine. It was a cheap option, but it meant actually that I hardly ever went into my office unless I was doing a live show. This desk now is just beautiful. It's a joy to work at. I went for the biggest option, although I think you can get bigger options. You can get wider ones. I think they do custom. Mike, let me know. I think you can get custom widths, but I went for I think it's 1800 by 600 millimeters, by the way, that is. And it is absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in a second. I can see Martin Buckland is in the house watching from Toronto. Great to see you. And Challenge ITV says, would like to add one more background. Just a minute. What about a green screen? Some nice background in line with the live stream ambience. Yes, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Well done, Challenge ITV. And Mike says, yes, we can do custom from Friska Desk. So I'm going to show you a little bit more about Friska Desk now. If I can get let's see if this is going to work. Come on, click the button. Okay, cool. So Friska Desk. By the way, Friska Desk, and Mike, maybe you can help me on this one. It's important to say, by the way, that Friska are not sponsoring me. They didn't send any free stuff out to me. I paid for this out of my hard-earned cash. But I just absolutely love Friska Desk, and the experience that I've had. Mike has just been so patient with me because I had to order it about a month ago. No, 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago. I don't know. But because the house move took ages and ages and ages. So Friska Desk is UK based. So if you are in US or Canada, you can't get Friska Desk there, unfortunately. But do you know what? In America, there are so many amazing options. And I got really frustrated, to be quite honest, with the options that were available in the UK. It just seemed that all the Americans and North Americans were having all the fun, until I found Friska Desk. And now, so let's go back. Where's it gone? Let's go back to friskadesk.com. I don't know whether, Mike, let me know whether you do Europe as well, but they are beautiful. And this is the one that I went for. It is the rustic vintage industrial effect standing desk. Now, you don't have to go for this, but I just love the color. It's really, really beautiful industrial color. It has two feet. Now, I was a little bit concerned about this because some of the desks that I saw in the US were four-legged, and my good friend Jeff C has a four-legged one, and he loves his, and he just loved the stability of it. And I was a bit concerned about whether this would be stable because I'm putting a huge amount of stuff on this, which I'll come on to in a minute. But it is really, really, really sturdy. And I've also got these on casters, which wheels basically allows me to move this around, and it's still really, really stable. Now, it's not cheap. I mean, this is £927 for the full width one. It is, if you go for the cheaper one, it's £867. So it's not cheap. By the way, there are cheaper versions of this without the industrial effect. So, but they're just so well made. I really, really love the way it is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring it over the camera, the Epoch Cam, and I'll show you a little bit more about it. Okay, so let's just turn it around. And let's go back to, where's it gone? Right, okay. So this is the desk here, and over here it's got the memory controller. Now, I actually haven't set the memories yet, but what you can do with this is you can set two heights. So in most cases, this would be your standing height and your sitting height. So anyway, what you can do then is just move it up and down. So that's going up. That's going down. So it works really, really nicely. So let's get the right height. So that's one thing. And then underneath is let's have a look at this. Okay, now that looks absolutely horrendous. And I want to basically suggest, say one thing, in that the underneath is got this amazing cable management system. And I'm really not using it very well at the moment because I haven't quite sorted it all out. But you can see underneath here, we've got this amazing rack which you can put in. I don't know whether you can see this, but I've got hubs in there. I've got plug sockets, extension leads, and all that kind of stuff. At the moment, though, it's a bit of a mess. So it will get better. It will get better. But on that, it's got the ends, and it just keeps everything really beautiful. Now, the other thing that I've got here is, let's have a look. That's the wrong one. Let's go back to Epoch Cam. I've got 4 cable ports. So let's have a look down there. That's 1. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and then over there, 4th one if I can find it. There we go. So I've got 4 cable ports. And so I went for, normally you can go for 2, but I went for 4 because it just means that you can put more stuff on the table and not worry so much about the cables. So just to show you what I've currently got on the desk, I've got I'm not using that one yet, but I've got this Elgato multi-mount there, and then I've got a light there. That's the Elgato Key Lights. I've got my teleprompter and also the extra camera there on that side. I've got another Elgato Key Light there. I've got another monitor there. I've got my Rodecaster Pro. I've got my MacBook Pro. I've got my 2 Stream Decks as well. Now, the idea, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what I'm going to be doing in the future, but that's what I've currently got. Yeah, thank you, Challenge ITV. I love your cable management. Yeah, it needs some work. That's what I'm going to say. Sorry, Mike, I've really ruined the look of your beautiful standing desk, but it is work in progress. So the next thing that is absolutely vital is software. And so I recommend, as I said, Ecamm Live with Restream. They work beautifully. And I'm not going to talk any more about that today because I've talked about that loads and loads of times in the past. So everything else really is the icing on the cake. And what is the icing on the cake? Now, you may be surprised to hear, but I think your background is the icing on the cake. It's not the absolutely vital thing. And the reason I say that is because I'm now on episode 123, and my background until a couple of episodes ago was really not that great. I was really not happy with it, but there was limitations to what I could do. I was living in rented accommodation. I couldn't really put much up behind me. So I had a kind of a plain wall. I also had a green screen. And so, yes, you can go for a green screen. And I've got the by the way, what's it called? The Elgato green screen, which is down there behind me. I'm not currently using it, but it's basically you just pull up the green screen from the ground, and it works beautifully. But what I've done with my new background is I've got a nice brick wall, and it isn't actually brick. I kind of really don't want to spoil the illusion, but it is wallpaper. So we had a decorator in. I can't wallpaper, by the way. I've got a nice little plant there. I've got some Hue light bulbs behind, and it's basically just wallpaper. And I love it. I love it. I think it looks really good. I'm going to be adding some extra stuff behind. If you've got any thoughts or ideas on what I should be adding behind me, let me know, because quite frankly, that kind of thing is not really my expertise. Particularly, I think sometimes when you're so close to your background, I don't mean kind of geographically speaking, I just mean when you're so close to it psychologically and emotionally, I think you kind of like need to get some ideas from other people. So let me know what you think about my background. The next most important thing, I think, is your lighting. And this is where we come on to the Elgato Key Lights. I love these Elgato Key Lights. Let me just put this in Amazon. Have I got it in Amazon? There we go. I'm going to put that on, highlight that on Amazon Live, because the Key Lights really changed everything for me in terms of my look and feel. You know, I've got a nice camera, but the lighting just looked awful. It just when I didn't have the Elgato Key Lights. And the great thing about the Elgato Key Lights is that you can adjust the color temperature as well. So I've got the Stream Decks, and I can from here or from my computer I can adjust the what do you call it, the light, the brightness. So I'm just putting that down, just clicking that, and you can see if you're watching, but just if you're listening, just know that the color temperature and the brightness is going down, and I can speed it up. I can put it right up again. I'm getting my words muddled today, aren't I? Too much tech. There we go. So yeah, I love that, because it means that you don't have to go behind and change it and then come out and look at the camera and set it all up that way. It just works really beautifully that way. So I highly recommend the Elgato Key Lights. I recommend 2 of them. They're not cheap, but it just means that you've got a really nice light. It's going to help your background. It's going to help you as well. Any other lights, you can get a third light, like a hair light, which will maybe shine down upon you. That's something I'm going to be thinking about in the future. And also lighting for your green screen, because you'll want to individually light your green screen as well. Then there are other types of lights you could go for. And the ones I recommend are all on my gear guide. So if you go to iag.me/gear guide, you can find out all about these. So I've got my switches, I've got my camera, I've got, this actually needs to be updated, my audio interface, because I'm now using the Rodecaster Pro. But it's the newer 480 LED lights are great. They work beautifully. So I highly recommend those. Great. Okay, so that is lighting. And the next thing that I think is important is the Rodecaster Pro, if you are wanting to level things up a little bit more. And the Rodecaster Pro, I've talked about this in the past, but it is, okay, my computer is slowing down again. This is why I need an M1 Mac. But the Rodecaster Pro is a mixer, an audio interface, and it also processes your audio as well. It makes you sound really amazing, I think. So you can't actually see this because I haven't. Let's see if I can get it a little bit over there. No, I'm not going to be able to do it. There we go. That's a bit better. So if I go to my first microphone here and click on audio processing. It works really, really beautifully. You can see this. Let's just zoom in a little bit more so you can see this. Okay, so I've got processing on, so it's basically getting rid of any background noise. It's enhancing my voice, but I'm going to switch it all off. Okay, so now I'm just speaking without any processing on. Let me know if you can hear the difference, and let's just put them on one by one. Okay, so I'm going to put on the compression. Okay, so the compression, that's between louds and softs. So it's going to compress that sound. High pass filter, it's going to get rid of any kind of low rumbles. The de-esser and the noise gate, so it's got rid of any kind of background noise that you might be hearing. The aural exciter basically adds a lot more resonance to my voice. So already it's going to kind of giving that kind of nice radio sound. And then the big bottom adds a little bit more depth to my voice. So yeah, I love the Rodecaster Pro. It works beautifully. And of course, you've got all these other buttons as well that you can press that give you extra sounds as well. So it works beautifully. I highly recommend the Rodecaster Pro. The next one that I recommend is getting a teleprompter. And the one I've currently got, if I just go to my screen here, I've got what's called an iPad teleprompter. So I've got my words, which are back to front. They're a mirror image on the iPad. I'm using some software there, and it reflects it onto the glass, which is at a kind of a 45-degree angle. And the camera, you might not be able to see this if you're watching, but the camera is just behind there. So you can get these, for about $100, $150, dollars. This is okay. This one, it's got some material to cover the back, so you're able to see, and they work really, really well. I'm using a very old iPad, so it's like an iPad version 3. But what I'm looking at getting next is, so that's the iPad version, but another way is to get a monitor, get a display, a small display, like a 7-inch or 10-inch display, and put that instead of the iPad there. And then the advantage with that means that you can actually reflect your guest or the view of your live show directly onto the teleprompter, which is amazing, because one of the problems I have when I have a guest is that when I look at the camera, I can't see my guest. They are actually down below on my teleprompter. So, I mean, there's quite a big difference between my teleprompter's height and then going down there to my MacBook Pro. So the advantage, if I was to reflect the whole screen onto the teleprompter, is that I could look directly at my guest and directly at my camera at the same time. But you need to get a special display, and I'm going to talk about this in the future when I get this. The ones I recommend are field monitors, and you need to get one that has the ability to flip or mirror the screen so that when it reflects onto the teleprompter, you can actually see what the words and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I recommend, a field monitor. And if you use a tool called, there's an app available for Mac called Teleprompter Pro, it will also allow you to superimpose your notes on top of the display as well, which is amazing. Hassan is in the house, loving the radio sound. Thank you, Hassan. It's great to see you here. Hope you're doing really well. So there we go. That is the teleprompter side of things. In fact, let me just go back to Amazon. I'm doing a really bad job at this. This is why I need a producer to do this in the background. Gabriel's asking me what time it is here, and it is 11:38 a.m. is what it is. So the Rodecaster Pro is definitely something I recommend. The Glide Gear teleprompter is normally $300, but at the moment you can get it for $200. There are cheaper ones, but that seems to be a really good one that I would recommend as well. And of course, there are the Elgato Key Lights as well. So check those out. Okay, the next thing that I want to talk about, and I've already mentioned this, are the Stream Decks. And Stream Decks are basically controllers that allow you to do lots of cool things, like changing scenes and adding sound effects and changing the brightness of your lights and all those kind of cool things. You can use it for gaming if you like. You can use it for productivity, but it's particularly useful if you use it in live streaming. Now, the Elgato do four different types of Stream Decks. They do the cheapest option is actually a version. It's a virtual version for your iPhone, and so you actually don't need to buy a physical device. You can just use it on your phone. I think there's a yearly subscription to that. And the other disadvantage is that it's not tactile. When you press the button, you're not getting any of that feedback. There's also the Mini, the Stream Deck Mini, which gives you, I don't know, is it like 4 or 6 buttons? Not very many buttons. There's the Stream Deck Standard, and then you've got the Stream Deck XL, which is what I've got here. And I've actually got 2, which it's probably going to be excessive for most people. But the reason I have that is because I do a lot of live video production, and I need to have, there's never enough buttons. So on my main Stream Deck, I've got all the scenes for this show, so I can toggle between them. So for example, I've got my image, I've got my intro. I can do a transition very easily, which I'm going to press in a minute. And then on the other side, I've got sound effects, I've got my CPU usage, and I've got the number of people watching me live. So, for example, if we wanted a little cheering sound, there we go, got to that button, or... So we've got lots of different sound effects there, which work really well. So I definitely recommend the Stream Decks. If you can afford the Stream Deck XL, it just means that you've got all the buttons that you'll ever need, really, unless you're like me and you need 2 Stream Deck XLs. But it works really beautifully. So so that's what you do. And I'm going to just press this little transition button so we can get on to the next part of the show.
You're listening to the Confident Live Marketing Podcast.
There you go. Okay, so that was Stream Decks. The next part, piece of gear that you can go for are the Elgato Multi-Mounts. Now, you don't have to go for Elgato. There are other types of multi-mounts here, but I particularly like the Elgato ones because they're so robust. And the multi, you might be asking, what is a multi-mount? But the multi-mount basically are stands. Let's find it here. Let's get the right button. So, for example, the stands that the Elgato Key Lights are on are effectively those multi-mounts. And I've got a multi-mount just above my monitor there, which then allows me to put some other stuff onto it. So that is the multi-mount. This allows you to put, for example, cameras and microphones, and you clamp them to the desk. And this is particularly important when you have a standing desk, because I want the camera and the lights to move with me. If I had a tripod behind or in front of the desk, that would be fixed and I'd have to fix it around. So with this Friska standing desk, I've got so much attached to it at the moment. It's like nuts, completely nuts. So the Elgato Multi-Mount, they're about $54, which is, that's relatively expensive for a mount. But I just really love it. So I've currently got 3 of these, and I'm currently using 2. So obviously I've got my key light on the multi-mount, but that came with it. And then I've got a multi-mount here with a flex arm that then can jut out and give me the downward-facing camera there, which is this one here. So hello, there we go. And then over here on my right-hand side, I've got one that I'm not really currently using, but I will be using that as I grow my studio. So yeah, multi-mounts, they work beautifully. There's the flex arm, and also, actually, one thing I didn't show you is the solid arm. Now, it's a bit difficult to show you this and describe this to you, but I've got the multi-mount there. And then just behind my monitor is the solid arm, which then my teleprompter is on. So it kind of juts out there at the right. And so they're really kind of flexible in terms of what you can do. They work beautifully. I really love them. So there are the Elgato Multi-Mounts. So that brings me on to the next question really, which is, well, what next? Oh, I can see there's a question from Hassan that I've totally missed. Sorry about that, Hassan. Are the two Stream Decks connected? No, they're not. They kind of look like they're connected, but they're basically plugging into a USB hub and it's a powered USB hub. That's really important. So because I've got so much equipment like my camera and Stream Decks and all that kind of stuff, that make sure it's powered. We've talked about docks and hubs in the past. We had Dock Rock a couple of episodes ago, so do check that out if you're interested in the right docks for your live show and your studio. But yeah, that's what I've got. It works beautifully. Katie says, it all looks like it works beautifully together. And Katie, yeah, I think I've done over 120 live shows with the Confident Live Marketing Show. And so I feel so much more confident and at ease than when I first started, just because I've done so many. But I tell you what, one thing that I've found with this new studio is that I just feel so much more at ease with the fact that the tech is just there, it's working. I just plug it in and I'm away. And so I think if you can get the tech sorted, it just means that you're going to be far less stressed about things. And so I highly recommend, not necessarily getting everything, but just making sure that what you do have is just all connected well and it works beautifully. And the desk, I think, is important. But that brings me on to really the one thing at the moment that I'm not happy with is my computer. And as I said at the start, really, that your computer is the most important part of your setup. And at the moment, my computer is just about coping, but it's very hot. Yes, I can feel the temperature. And occasionally it just glitches out. And so that's why I will be thinking I'm going to be getting an M1 Mac Mini, which will allow me to just have a lot more confidence and be able to stream at a better quality as well. So yeah, that's something I would definitely recommend. If you've got some budget, make sure that you're putting it first towards your computer and that your computer is going to cope with what you're flinging at it. That's the important thing. The next thing that I'm going to be looking at is investing in some hubs and some docks. There's no point in me doing that until I get my Mac Mini, but I want to make sure that I've got the right kind of hubs and docks for my setup, because I've got my camera, more about that in a minute. I'm going to be getting a new display, more about that, Stream Decks, microphone, Rodecaster Pro, and other things. So the hubs and docks for the connectivity are really important. The next thing I want to think about is networking the house. So currently I'm plugged in because that's going to give me the fastest connection. But if you've got wireless and it works okay, fine. But ideally plug it in via Ethernet. You're going to get a better connection that way. But I want to network the house, so I'm going to get somebody in to put a cable down into Helen's office and into the lounge, and just make sure that that's all working beautifully, because connectivity and decent internet is so important. And then the next thing, which might be a little bit of a while because all of this costs a bit of money, is I'm going to upgrade my camera. So the camera that I'm looking at getting is the Canon A6400 plus the Sigma lens, and that will also allow me to free up the M50 to use as a secondary camera. So because I want to play around with different camera angles, I want to have a better camera looking down as well. And then that brings me on to the final thing, which I'm leaving to the last because it's the bit that is a bit more tricky. All these other things, like I know I'm going to get the Mac Mini. I don't quite know which hubs and docks I'm going to get, but that's just a fairly simple thing. I know which camera I'm going to get. But the next thing is a bit more difficult, and that's background. I'm really happy with the background, but I feel it needs a bit of personality behind it. So if you've got any thoughts, if you're listening to the podcast or you're watching, if you've got any thoughts on what I can put in my background to put a bit of personality into it, I would love to know from you. Well, that is it. If you have any questions, let me know. But that has basically been a bit of a tour of my studio. Which bit have you enjoyed the most? Which bit would you really like? Is it the desk? Is it the audio setup? And which bit are you going to be investing in next? I'd love to know from you what your priorities are, because of course we're all going to have different priorities. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing. And then in terms of everything else that's happening in my business, well, Just finished my Launch Your Live course. We're changing the name, as I mentioned before, changing the name to the Confident Live Academy. And that's going to be happening again in probably about September, October time. I'll let you know a little bit more about that when it comes out. But I'm excited about that. That's gone really, really well, despite moving house in the middle of it, which is never a good thing. But thankfully, we got there in the end. Now, let's have a look what Katie's saying. Bring the plant up a little higher and a little shelf on the other side with your new book sitting on top. My new book. Am I writing a book, Katie? Okay. I have talked about that. But yeah, no, that's great. The problem is with the plant. I think you're right. The plant is perfect at the moment if I'm sitting down. But if I'm standing up, it's not great. So we need to adjust. We do need to adjust that. I think you're right. But maybe I should have that on a like a moving up and down. But if I just move down now to a sitting position, so I will end my show in a nice sitting position now. That's about right, I think. That works beautifully. But obviously, if I'm standing up, then I need to have it higher. So yeah, that's a good thing. And I like the idea of a shelf. Just need to work out what's going to happen there. And Melissa is saying audio setup is what you want. So currently, Melissa, what are you using for your audio? And what are you looking to improve there? Let me know, Melissa. Happy to help. Well, I think that is it for this week. Just to let you know that on Thursday, if you're watching live or if you're listening to the podcast, it'll be next Friday. I'm going to be talking about live video tech made easy. So if you've watched today and you've been a little bit stressed about, or overwhelmed maybe is the right word, then about all the tech, then don't worry. I'm going to make it really easy on Thursday. We're going to go back to basics, and I'll be talking about what you actually need to get started with your live videos and what the priorities are. So kind of a similar episode to today, but we're focusing particularly on what you absolutely need and how to make it easy, and how also not to get overwhelmed. So a little bit of mindset as well, because I think sometimes we can get overwhelmed. If you get overwhelmed, put overwhelm in the comments. Or if you're listening to the podcast, let me know in the future. Well, that is it for this week. It's been great to get back into the live streaming again and into the podcast. It's been a bit of a challenge because Tonya, my amazing assistant, has been away on a very deserved vacation. So she's in Hawaii at the moment, and but it just shows that how much I need her. So if you've emailed me or contacted me and I've been a bit slow, that is why. Good excuse. What you reckon? But that is it for this week. I encourage you to level up your impact, authority, and profits through the power of Confident Live Video. I'll see you soon. Toodaloo. Bye.
Thanks for watching the Confident Live Marketing Show with Ian Anderson Gray.
Make sure you subscribe at iag.me/podcast so you can continue to level up your impact, authority, and profits through the power of live video.
And until next time,
Toodaloo.